Okay, so today we will be covering covering linear equations, slope, and functions. So starting off with the first one, we have what we call direct variation. And a direct variation, okay, sorry, I think this. So direct variation, it can be represented by y equals kx, where k is not equal 0, and the graph of y equals kx is a line through the origin. So what that means is that a direct variation, if we draw a graph of it, so this is our coordinate plane, y equals kx would look like this. And k is a constant, so which I'll get to when we talk about slope. But k is a constant, and you can find k by looking at our next task, which is slope. So you can find k by finding the slope, because k, the constant, is the same as the slope of this line that we have here. So how can you find the slope of a line? Well, when you have 2 points, so if you know 2 points on the graph that I showed up here, so let's say that we have the point, well, let's say that for a direct variation, we have the point 0, 0, and we have a point up here, and let's say it's maybe 3, 1. Well, we can find the slope by taking the difference between the y values and the difference between the x values. So here's 0, 0. So we can take the difference between the y values, which is 1 minus 0, and the difference between the x values, which is 3 minus 0. And that would give us the slope, or k, of the line that we have, which, if we calculate this, would be 1/3. So for this line that we have that goes through the point 0, 0, and 3, 1, the slope, or the constant, is 1/3. And that also works for lines that don't pass through the origin, so that aren't y equals kx, in the form y equals kx. And those lines, so a constant line could be y equals mx plus b. And that would mean that we have the coordinate plane here. The line would not pass through the origin if b does not equal 0. And this point here would be 0, b. So b is how far up or down you go for the y-axis. So if b was negative, then then the line would be down here. And if b was positive, it would be up here. Okay, so to find the slope of this line, since now that 0, 0 isn't a point on the line, in order to find this slope, we would still use 2 points. But like this example we have has the point 0, 2 and 3, 6. So we can still use 2 different points to find the slope of the line. So how we do that is we take the difference of the y values. So 6 minus 2. So this is one y value, this is the second. So 6 minus 2 are 2 y values. And then we take the difference between the x values, which is 3 and 0. So we can take 3 minus 0. And that gives us 4/3. So that means that m, which is our slope, is equal to 4/3. And how we can write that out with variables. Okay, let me that. Okay, so how can we write that out with variables? Well, m is equal to delta y over delta x, which means the difference in y over the difference in x. And that is equal to y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So if we have the point x1, y1, and x2, y2, the slope would be y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And it doesn't matter, it can also be y1 minus y2 over x1 minus x2. It just has to be, if you have x1 first, then you also need to have y1 first. So 2 always has to align like this. So you wouldn't be able to have y2 minus y1 over x1 minus x2, because that would give you a different value. Does that make sense? Does anyone have any questions?
Not really.
Teresa?
So, how would you know if it was 3 minus 6 or 6 minus 3?
So for the example that I had above the, is it for these 2 points here?
Yeah.
Okay, well, it would actually be 6 minus 2 because the 0, so if I write this out like here, 0 would be the x value, so how far you go along the axis. Here, I'll draw it over here so it's clearer. So 0 would be, so the x value is how far you go along the x-axis, so either to the left or the right, depending on whether or not that value is positive or negative. And 2 is how far along you go along the y-axis, so whether it's positive or negative. And so this would be the y value. So the x value and the y value tell you where your point is. So 0, 2 would actually be here because you go, well, it would be on the y-axis because you go 0 spaces along the x-axis and you go 2 points up the y-axis. So that's where 0, 2 would be. And then a 3, 6, it also has a x value and a y value, and that would be 3 spaces along the x-axis and 6 spaces along the y-axis. Sorry, that's out of proportion. So let's say 3, 6 is like somewhere up here. So that would be our line. And then we want to take the difference in the y value. Okay, sorry, I think my screen stops sharing. Let me reshare that. Okay, so so that's our line. So we would take the difference in the y value. So it would be 6 minus 2 over 3, and it's divided by the difference in the x value. So 3 minus 0. And it actually doesn't really matter if you take 2 minus 6 or 6 minus 2. You just have to make sure that you're consistent with the y values and the x values. So because if you have 6 minus 2 over 3 minus 0, that would give you the same thing as 2 minus 6 over 0 minus 3. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, but you wouldn't do 6 minus 3 because they're the same coordinate. You would need 2 different points to calculate it. Yeah, I'll write this to the side so it's easier to see. So that is equal to, okay, any more questions? If there are no more questions, we can move on to the exercises, where you can find the slope between the following pairs of coordinates. So they're numbered 1 through 5. So I'll give y'all a few minutes to complete the problems, and then we can go over the answers together. Let me know if you have any questions. Janvi, am I pronouncing your name correctly?
Yeah, so what do you do when you're done? I missed instruction about after when you
Well, if you're done, I guess if you're done, just give me a thumbs up reaction, like with the reactions, and then we can begin when everyone else is done. I think I'll give it maybe like 2 more minutes, and then we can just go over the answers then. Okay, does anyone want more time to complete the problems? Okay, if not, let's start with the first one. So, does anyone want to tell me the answer to the first problem? John V?
I got -6.
Yep, that's correct. So, number one. So, how did you get the answer, -6?
Well, what I did was I just basically I minused y from y and I mean I subtracted y from y and I subtracted x from x, like I made it like a fraction, like y on the top and x on the bottom, and then I got -6/1, which I mean -6/1, which is -6.
Yep, that's correct. So we have -6 for the first question. Okay, does anyone want to try number two? Teresa?
I got 7 over -4.
Yes, that's correct. So how did you get your answer?
So I did, wait. Can you give me 1 sec?
Yeah, that's totally fine.
So I think, oh yeah, it was, so 1 minus 8 was -7, and then, and that was for the y. So, and it's y divided by x, so 7 at the top, and then -4 at the bottom, because 7 minus 3 is 4. Wait.
Yep.
Oh yeah. So, well, the other way around would be -7/4.
Yeah, nice job. Okay, so does anyone want to try number three? John V, do you want to try this one?
Yeah, sure. For number 3, I got 8.
That's correct. So do you want to tell us how you got your answer?
Okay, so I follow the same formula of, minusing y with subtracting y from y and over subtracting x from x. And so, and y here is 9. And so what I did, and then the second y is 1. So I subtracted 9 from 1, which is, 1 from 9, which is 8. And then I subtracted 1 from 2, which is 1, and I got 8 over 1.
Yes, nice job. Okay, so does anyone want to try number 4? Teresa?
I got 3/2.
Yeah, that's correct. And how did you get your answer?
So 3 minus 0 is just, wait. Oh yeah, 3 minus 0 is just 3. And it's y over 6, and then y over x. And 2 minus 0 equals 2. So it'll just be 3/2.
Yep, that's correct. Nice job. Okay, and the last question, John V.
Well, I got 1 over -7.
Yep, and how did you get your answer?
Well, what I did was I subtracted 1 from 2, and I got 1, and then I subtracted 9 from 2, and I got -7.
Yes, that's correct. Nice job. Okay, so now that oh wait, does anyone have any questions over that exercise? Okay, well, let's move on to our next task. So the next one is linear equations. I'll move this. Okay, so next we're covering linear equations, and linear equations are basically direct equations, but they're written, but like I said before, they don't always pass through the origin. So a direct variation is actually a linear equation, but there are other linear equations besides a direct variation. So, like I said before, if we had a coordinate plane, and then we have the equation, say y equals mx plus b. Well, we would know that we have a y-intercept of 0, b, and the y-intercept is just where does the line cross the y-axis. So this is the y-axis, so the y-intercept is 0, b. So this is 0, b. That's the y-intercept. And the slope is, so m would then be the slope. So that's what we found before. So that's basically how does the rate of change between 2 points, any 2 points on the line. So if we have, say a positive, say if we have a positive slope of, let's take an example from before, 3/2. If we have a slope of 3/2, that means that we would go over 2 and up 3. So this would be, so we would go over 2, up 3. So then say that this point was, I don't know, we can give this like any point that we want. We'll call a point here, let's do -1, 2. Well, then the point over here would be, the next point would be, -2, 2. Let's give that point -2, 2. And if we have a slope of 3/2, that means that we go over 2. So the x value would be 0. And then up 3. So the y value would be 5. So you're basically adding 2 to this side and adding 3 to this side. So that means that this 0 comma b would be 0 comma 5. So b is equal to 5. I'm not sure, does that make sense?
Yeah.
I think. Okay, cool. So so how do we find an equation with like 2 points? Well, first we need to find the slope, which is m, and then we also need to find what is b. And when you're given 2 points, so let's say 0, 2, and 3, 6 from our example before. Well, you first want to find the slope between the 2 points, which we already calculated is 6 minus 2 over 3 minus 0, which is 4 over 3. And then you want to find b. And the way you can find b is by substituting in one of those points. But we were already given the intercept, but say we weren't given it, we can substitute in this point and we can find what b is. So how can we substitute that in? We can substitute that by saying we have the y value of 6. So 6 is equal to slope, which is 4 over 3, times the x value, which is 3, and then plus b. And now you calculate the equation for b. And we can calculate that by multiplying this. So this cancels out since 3 times 4 for 3 is equal to 3 times 1/3 times 4. So we can cancel this out since this equals 1. So therefore we have 6 is equal to 4 plus b. And then subtracting 4 from both sides, we get 2 is equal to b. So that means that our equation would be y is equal to 4/3 x plus 2. Does that make sense? Okay, does anyone have any questions? If no one has questions, we can do the exercises below. So find an equation containing the 2 points given. And I'll give everyone maybe like 8 minutes to complete the 5 problems. And then we can go over the answers. And if you finish beforehand, you can give me a thumbs up reaction, and then I'll know that you're finished. Do you have a question?
Yeah, so basically what they're asking is they want us to write like the equation to find the answer. So like what we were doing before.
Yeah, so if you can see that the question here, I actually gave the same points here, so you don't actually have to look for the slope again since we already found the slope for each of the points. But what we're looking for is to write an equation in this form, slope-intercept form, which is y equals mx plus b. So write an equation in this form that contains the 2 points. Does that make sense? Or
yeah, I understand.
Does anyone need more time to finish the?
I need more time.
Okay, that's fine. Like some more time to finish.
I'm done.
Okay. Does anyone else want some more time? Okay. Well, we can get started by going over these problems. So let's start with the first one. So would anyone like to give me the equation they found? Oh, John V?
My answer was y equals negative 6x plus 20, plus 26.
Yep, that's correct. So do you want to tell us how you found B for the equation?
Yeah, so I distributed negative 6 to 4, and I got negative 24, and I was like negative 24 plus what equals 2, because that's the other number. So then plus and I know 26 plus negative 24 will equal 2. So that's how I got my answer.
Nice job. Okay, so does anyone want to give me their equation for number 2? I know that this one was a fraction, so it was a bit harder. Does anyone want to give a shot at this one? John V?
Okay, so I don't really know how well I did it because it was a fraction, but I got negative 7 over 4 x plus 77.
Okay. Well, actually, for this one, you could solve it 2 ways by substituting in either of these coordinates. So we can try it with the first one here. So we substitute in 1 for y, and that equals 7x over 4 times, and then we can substitute in 7 for x and plus b. So we're looking for b, and then we can solve this by going 1 is equal to, we multiply 7 times 7, which is equal to negative 49. And then we divide that by 4, so on the bottom, plus b. And now we can add negative 49 over 4 to both sides. And if we want to add it over here, it would be easier for us to convert 1 into 4 over 4, which is the fraction. So 4 over 4 plus 49 over 4. So we add 49 over 4 to both sides. And that would give us what b is. And adding this, so 4 plus 49 is equal to 53. So we have 53 over 4 is equal to b. But you were really close. And this one was a difficult one since it was a lot of fractions. So nice job. Hey, John Ray?
So why didn't we distribute the 7 to the denominator of when we distributed?
Well, when we're multiplying these fractions, we can write negative 7 over 4 can also be written as negative 7 times 1 over 4. And when we multiply that, we're basically multiplying 7 to this value. But since this is multiplication and not addition, that means that we only need to multiply 7 to one of the values. Since if you multiply these two together, it's still just this one value. So we can multiply 7. So we could do negative 7 times 7 over 4, or we could do negative 49 times 1 over 4. So we would only need to multiply it onto one of those values to get the answer.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, so does anyone want to try number 3? No. Teresa, Carson, do either of you want to give me your answer? Hey, Teresa.
I got y equals 8x minus 7.
That's correct. So, sorry. Okay, so can you tell us how you got your answer?
So to like find the slope, I did 1 minus 9 and then like over 1 minus 2, which is like negative 8 over negative 1, which just equals 8. And then how to explain this? And then I put like 8. I took like one of the points, which was I took 2, 9. How do you say like the points to 9?
Well, you can just call it 2, 9. So I took the point so you substituted in the x value and the y value from 2, 9.
Yeah.
Is that okay? So
And then okay.
yeah.
Wait.
So go ahead. Sorry.
I don't know how to explain this.
That's fine. So you use that point. So if you substitute it in, since 9 was the y value, so you substituted 9 and then 2 was the x value, so you put that so you substitute in 2 for where x is, and that would give you 9 is equal to 16 plus b, and then that would give you b is equal to negative 7. So yeah, you're correct. Nice job. Okay, so does anyone want to give me their answer for number 4? Johnry?
I can try because I did solve it, but I'm not sure it's correct because I originally solved it before I knew that I wasn't supposed to distribute the denominator, so I resolved it, but I might have gotten it wrong. Well, I got negative 1 over 7x plus 16.
Okay, so for this problem, actually, so since you already are given the point 0, 0, and since b is since 0b is the y-intercept, so it's the point where the line meets the y-axis. Well, since the y-intercept is 0, 0, that means that b would actually be the origin, so it would just be b would just be 0. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I accidentally told you the answer for number 5, but for number 4, I got B as 0, so I actually ended up in.
Yeah, well, nice job. So number 5, so you said y is equal to negative 1 over 7 plus, sorry, what was your answer again? Was it just negative 1 over 7x plus 16?
Yeah.
Okay. So for this one, you're actually really close. It's actually 16 over 7. Or you can write it as y equals negative x plus 16 all over 7, since the denominator is the same. But you could solve this by, you already know that this slope is negative 1 over 7, so you could substitute in, let's use 2, 2. So we could do 2 is equal to negative 1 over 7 times 2, and then plus b, and then you get 2 is equal to negative 2 over 7 plus b. And if you add 2 over 7 to both sides, you would get 14 over 7 plus 2 over 7, since 14 over 7 is equal to 2 and equals b, and therefore you would get that b is equal to 16 over 7, which is your answer here. But yeah, you were really close, so nice job. Okay, so does anyone have any questions over that? Okay, since it's getting kind of late, we won't do the exercises for task 4, but I'll still go over task 4 since task 4 is similar to what we did to find b. Since so task 4 is just how to solve linear equations. So if we have like the example given here, we have the linear equation. The linear equation 8 times x minus 4 equals 10x plus 5, and that's a linear equation because because x doesn't have a power, so it's not an exponent. So when you graph it, it's still going to be a straight line. Well, how do you solve for this? Well, first you can distribute 8, so 8x minus 8 times 4, which is 32, is equal to 10x plus 5. And then you can, and then you want to move the variable to the same side. So you want to have x on one side and the numbers on the other side. So you can either minus 8x or minus 10x from both sides, whichever one you prefer. Let's minus 10x. So we can minus 10x from both sides. And that will give us negative 2x minus 32 is equal to 5. And then we can add 32 to both sides so that we can isolate x, so that x is the only thing on this side. It's the only value on this side. So we add 32 to both sides and we end up with negative 2x is equal to 37. And then finally we can divide by negative 2. Sorry. We can divide by negative 2 on both sides. So that would give us 1x is equal to 37 over negative 2. So our final answer would be x is equal to negative 37 over 2. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay, does anyone have any questions? Okay, if there are no questions, then I think that we won't do the exercises for this since solving for x is basically what we did when finding the equation, since we needed to solve for b, and that process is basically the same thing. You want to isolate the variable and solve for that variable. So we don't really need to practice that. And I'll move the functions to next week, so we still cover functions. And I'll make sure to update the syllabus as well, so you know how we're going to how the schedule is going